From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
I think we desperately need a popular uprising in the United States. None of us know. I study movements. We don't know the exact formula when those movements erupt. But it could be. And if that's true, then these people who are here are really wonderful.
Protesters continue to camp out in New York's financial district as part of Occupy Wall Street. We'll take you there for the latest on a movement that is inspiring similar protests across the country. Then, American teacher.
Everyone's heard that old axiom that those who can do and those who can't teach. The proponents of that axiom have never stood in front of a classroom.
A new documentary on American public school teachers looks at the heavy toll exacted on their lives by the grueling hours and low pay. We'll speak with one of the teachers in the film and with its director. But first, has the assassination of U.S. citizens without due process now become a reality? U.S. and Yemeni officials say they've killed the American-born cleric Anwar al-Awlaki in Yemen. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Juan Gonzalez. The Muslim cleric and U.S.-born cleric Anwar al-Awlaki has reportedly been killed in Yemen. The Yemeni government claims its forces successfully targeted al-Awlaki in a raid near the capital Sana'a, but sources on the ground say he was likely killed in a U.S. bombing. State Department cables previously released by WikiLeaks have shown Yemen has taken credit for U.S. strikes within its borders to avoid public anger. It's believed al-Awlaki was the first U.S. citizen added to a CIA list of targets for capture or killing. He was previously targeted in a U.S. bombing of Yemen earlier this year. He's been accused of ties to a number of plots, including the 2009 shootings at Fort Hood, Texas, that killed 13 people. We'll have more on this story after headlines. The Obama administration has condemned an attempted assault on the U.S. ambassador to Syria and other U.S. officials in the Syrian capital of Damascus. Dozens of supporters of embattled Syrian President Bashar al-Assad targeted the U.S. officials' motorcade as they headed to meet with an opposition leader and then trapped them inside the office where the meeting was held. In Washington, White House spokesperson Jay Carney accused the Syrian government of involvement.
And these kinds of assaults against diplomatic personnel, including our ambassador, are unwarranted and unjustifiable. This is clearly a part of an ongoing campaign to intimidate and threaten diplomats attempting to bear witness to the brutality of the Assad regime. Day after day, Ambassador Ford puts himself at great personal risk to support the legitimate aspirations of the Syrian people.
The targeting of U.S. diplomats comes amidst an ongoing Syrian government assault on the town of Rastan. At least 27 people have reportedly been killed in a three-day siege by Syrian forces. Another 17 people were reportedly killed in attacks on the town of Homs. Forces backed by Libya's transitional government have seized the airport in the city of Sirte, the birthplace of ousted leader Muammar Gaddafi. The airport's capture is a key breakthrough for the government fighters seeking to control one of Gaddafi's last remaining strongholds. The fighting in Libya comes amidst a visit from a top congressional delegation. Speaking in Tripoli, Republican Senator John McCain said the U.S. is eager to do business in post-Gaddafi Libya.
American investors are more than eager to come and invest here in Libya. And we hope that and believe that they will be given an opportunity to do so. And it's pretty clear that as long as fighting is going on, it'll be more difficult to attract that investment.
The Afghan government says it's rethinking its ties with Pakistan, as well as negotiations with the Taliban, following a number of recent attacks. A former Afghan president was killed last week during talks with the Taliban, while a number of people were killed in a Kabul attack tied to the Pakistani-based Haqqani group. The Wall Street Journal reports the Afghan government has decided to suspend the three-way effort with Pakistan and the U.S. to hold talks with the Taliban. In other Afghan news, the U.S.-led NATO occupation forces sparred with UN officials over figures showing a surge in recent violence. On Thursday, the U.S. disputed a UN report that violence has increased 40% over the last year. At the United Nations, the UN Special Envoy to Afghanistan, Staffan de Mistura, said that while military incidents may have declined, civilian casualties are on the rise.
There is no question from a number point of view that there has been a substantial reduction of military incidents. So we are not questioning those figures. And we are talking about different figures. Now, if you are asking me instead whether there has been a decrease or increase of civilian casualties, we will then have to say, and everybody agrees, there has been a substantial, unfortunate increase.
Amnesty International is claiming to have uncovered new evidence of Lithuania's involvement in the Bush administration's use of rendition flights in secret CIA prisons. The group says investigators have discovered a previously undisclosed rendition flight pointing to the detention of al-Qaeda operative Abu Zabadiah at one of the two known CIA prisons on Lithuanian soil. Amnesty researcher Julia Hall said Lithuanian investigators should reopen a probe.
This is a flight that does not appear in the parliamentary inquiry report. We have never heard any explanation from the Prosecutor General about this flight. And so it begs the question, if Crofton Black, a professional investigator from Reprieve, and Amnesty International with its staff of professionals who've been able to verify this flight can do it, why couldn't the Prosecutor General uncover this flight with its resources and its own professional staff?
Bahrain continues to sentence prisoners for taking part in the unrest that swept the Gulf nation earlier this year. On Thursday, a prisoner was sentenced to death for the alleged killing of a police officer. Bahrain, meanwhile, has come under international criticism for the harsh sentences of 20 medical workers who treated demonstrators. The group of doctors, nurses, and other medics were given sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years. In a statement, the group Physicians for Human Rights called for the medics to be freed, saying, quote, to imprison them as part of a political struggle is unconscionable. Also Thursday, hundreds of Bahrain women rallied in the capital to protest the sentences.
We ask for all women prisoners to be freed and for all charges against them to be dropped. These cruel sentences of our doctors, nurses and teachers, Rola al-Safar, Jalila al-Saman and Dr. Nadi Tayef and everyone else.
A Brazilian court has again halted construction of a major hydroelectric dam in the Amazon rainforest. The $11 billion Belo Monte project was approved for construction over the objections of indigenous communities who have brought numerous challenges, citing environmental concerns. In California, prisoners taking part in a renewed hunger strike are being threatened with disciplinary action. The inmates at Pelican Bay and other state correctional facilities resumed their hunger strike this week after winning promises of changes to conditions and long-term solitary confinement in July. The prisoners are now being threatened with the loss of personal items for refusing to eat. Those identified as strike leaders also face confinement in an administrative segregation unit. A coalition of civil rights and immigrant rights groups has appealed a federal judge's ruling upholding key portions of Alabama's controversial immigration law. This week, Chief U.S. District Judge Sharon Lovelace Blackburn backed provisions that would require police to arrest anyone they suspect of being in the country without legal status, prevent courts from enforcing contracts involving undocumented immigrants, and allow public schools to determine the immigration status of enrolled students. The appeal is led by the Hispanic Interest Coalition of Alabama, which is seeking an injunction to block the law's provisions from taking effect while they're under review. The Washington Post, meanwhile, reports Justice Department lawyers are considering bringing lawsuits against similar anti-immigrant measures in Utah, Georgia, Indiana, and South Carolina. A federal judge in Kansas has refused to block a new state law that restricts insurance coverage for abortions. The law bars insurance companies from covering abortions under general health plans unless the mother's life is at risk. The American Civil Liberties Union had challenged the law, calling it unconstitutional. Also Thursday, the ACLU filed a separate appeal seeking to block a North Carolina law that forces women to show an ultrasound image of the fetus, be shown an ultrasound image of the fetus before getting an abortion. And 2 Arkansas men have been sentenced to prison for hate crimes in an attack on a group of Hispanic men last year. Frankie Maybe and Sean Popejoy were sentenced to 11 and 4 years apiece. They were convicted for attacking the victims, yelling racial epithets, and then pursuing them in a dangerous car chase that caused life-threatening injuries. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Juan Gonzalez. Amy Goodman is off today.